Hello and welcome back to the world generation in Hytale. Now what I want to go over in this video is trying to recreate the Minecraft terrain in Hytale. If you haven't seen my first video, I do recommend checking that out, as it kind of does explain a lot of how this world generation stuff works. But the reason why I wanted to take on this project is because recently, like right whenever the blog post is posting, I was working on basically recreating the Minecraft world generation, as you can see here, into this Minecraft mod called Terra. And as you can see, I've been getting pretty close. I've pretty much have most of it down. This is kind of just the mapping of some of the biomes and stuff like that. But the reason why I've been doing that and like kind of recreating in Terra is just because I didn't like how Minecraft's world generation works, and Terra just has a whole bunch of other features. I've even like listed a lot of the kind of differences in this chart here between Minecraft, the Terra Minecraft mod, and then Hytale. Just kind of listing differences because I had a lot of ideas of terrain generation stuff I wanted to try in Minecraft, but it just wasn't really possible in base Minecraft, and was the reason why I was using that mod. But and so that's why I decided to turn over and try out Terra and see if it has those capabilities. And I will definitely say, going over, you know, that first video where I went over all the stuff, it definitely has all those capabilities plus a whole lot more, and is meant for performance, because sometimes Terra just isn't necessarily for that, and that's, I think, mainly just because you can't cache and kind of export and import densities, which, you know, I have kind of been using a lot in a lot of this stuff. But I guess we should jump right into it. I also wanted to mention here that I'm doing the same project again in Hytale of recreating the Minecraft terrain, because while I can hate on some of the aspects that Minecraft terrain has, it does have a good base of terrain shaping and biome blending. And I think this, in combination with Hytale's features like biome-specific height maps, can create a really good base for a whole new Hytale world, which is what I really wanted to experiment with my first project in the Hytale world generator. Now, I do also recommend for this video also watching Henrik's video of the Minecraft terrain generation in a nutshell, since I will be directly doing this. A few important concepts, I guess, to grab from this is that it uses a global... Oh, that's an ad. one second for this ad. A few things is that, for one, it uses a just global height map, which I was kind of explaining in the previous video. Trying to get a good... here it is. So you can see the biomes are painted onto this global height map, so it doesn't matter what biome it is, the height map will look the same. I would say that's kind of the main important one. Another one is, I guess, kind of how these specific like noise maps affect the terrain. Continentalness, as you know, ocean, land. Erosion is basically how rigid that kind of land is. So do you have like huge like mountains and like just kind of shattered areas, or do you have very smooth areas that have been run over with like quote-unquote water? And then peaks and valleys is used to determine rivers and then mountains. So these dark spots here are, you know, all of the rivers, and then the white parts are the mountains. And then these two are for the biome mapping. So you have the temperature, where, you know, you have desert here, and then like a tundra here. Then humidity, you have a forest here, and like a plains over here. And so that's kind of a few of the things. Let me think if there's anything else. Oh yes, there's also splines, which again I've also talked about in a previous thing. This is it paused? Yes. Okay. So this is kind of mapping the noise map to specific points on this graph here, to where once like the noise map hits a certain value, it'll create a plateau that will determine like, hey, this is where land starts, essentially. And you can see, I think, a little, yeah, you can see an example of that in progress here. So here would be like the oceans, and then a plateau straight to the land. And again, this is a very simple one, but he shows a little bit of the more complicated one, where it goes through like a I think a 3-dimension spline mapping here. Let's see if I can catch it. Yeah, so you have continentalness at the bottom, and then for each of these points is different based off of the erosion value, and then each of these points is different based off of the peaks and valleys mapping here. And while I did do this technique, it is very much a lot more simpler, to where I think I only have like 1 point per 1 point for the low continentalness, 1 point for the high continentalness, and then 1 point for high erosion and 1 point for low erosion, and then each of those just has peaks and valleys graph on it, which I will show in a second. But I think that is it that you kind of need to know, I guess, about kind of the terrain generation for Minecraft. However, something that I wanted to do for this is be able to have a global height map, which you can do easily, but also have a local height map, which you can't do in Minecraft, which I think is just such a missed opportunity, because you can't create like unique new biomes. Like if you introduce a new biome, like for example the Pale Garden, you can't change how it looks. You can't like make like random, like just I don't know, random generation on top of that necessarily. You can add some stuff because of like feature generation, but all that's hard coded and, you know, a little bit complicated, and they don't use it that much. So just something that you can't necessarily use as for like data packs necessarily. But yeah, so I haven't actually done the local height map, and I will do a test on it for like, for example, the deserts, to make like little dunes here and there. But yeah, so let us start off with, I guess, kind of step 1, the shape of the terrain. To start off with, I just created this very simple biome, just kind of thing here, to where all it does is it just stores all of the shape of the global terrain. And this is again calling to all of the values that are, where is it? Oh, it's on the left side of the screen here, that are here. Again, the continents, erosion, peaks and valleys. And if you want to know how you are able to get a noise map that is similar to what you see here, almost here, somewhere here, similar to here. I think I showed a little bit of it in the last video, or like the Desmos graph of it. But here's kind of the actual math for it. You have the simplex noise. I guess this is just the noise on top of the peaks and valleys, but this is the main noise. You then do an absolute value of it. So actually I can just graph it 1-to-1 right now in Desmos to show you. Open graphing calculator. Alright, so you have x, and that goes from -1 to 1. So in between here is where everything's being mapped. You have the absolute value is the first thing that you take from that, and then after that you add on -0.66 repeating, so it just moves it down. Then you take the absolute density again, so let me do that, and then add on -0.333, just a -1/3, and then multiply all that by -3, like so. And this will create again the rivers here with the mountains, and then a little grove if it goes perhaps a little bit over to the 1 or -1, which you will see again in this example here, where if it hits a little bit more than that, like -0.75 or 0.75, then it'll go into a grove instead of just being the top there. But anyway, going back to here, that's pretty much it for that. And again, the contents, there's erosion. It's very simple, just using these values here. I did change it a little bit just to be, I guess, kind of look a bit nicer, like having smaller oceans or clamping the strongest of the erosion or the lowest of erosion. And then here, all that I'm doing pretty much is I'm just setting it to 1, so it'll always go here, but it's still technically considered U, so it'll still just cache it all, which is great. Or I guess not necessarily cache it, just export it. I haven't done the caching yet, because I don't know exactly what will be used a lot, and I don't want to cache a lot to like store up a whole lot of memory. But I should probably do it for peaks and valleys since I do use that value a lot. But yes, so hopefully that was somewhat simple to explain. And if you have, again, any questions about any of this, feel free to leave it in the comments. And let me go to here. So I guess, yeah, should start off at the beginning here. Here is just pretty much how you start off with a lot of these things. You have the inverse of the base. This I found works really well. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my voice there. Really well. And then you can do simplex noise 2D and with a curve mapper. This is just, again, how I found the best way to kind of like think about and work with a lot of this stuff. And then you can do manual curve and then just do a curve point. And then let's say like, oh, if it's at -1, then I want it to be at the base. But then if you get it to 1, so this is just very common to make like to make like a mountain, I guess, out of this simplex noise. At the end, I want it to go all the way up to 10. So it'll go from just being right at the base to being 10 above the base using this Heightmap here. And this is just kind of like an example of how it's done. I think I should be able to like do something like this and then do this to oh, not time set noon. Nope, I didn't want to reload it all. Oh boy. I just want to reload these chunks. But while we wait for that to load, I will explain a little bit more, or I guess kind of using this technique here, is how I'm able to do the rest of it. So this is all exported and used by pretty much all the other biomes to be the base height map, so there's no like jagged cliffs or anything like that, which was again another concern that I had with kind of having only local height maps, in that you would just have, like, say you have this one right at the base, right near the river, and then this one be like higher up. You would just have a huge cliff here, which is why, again, I just think having a global height map is very useful to have, or at least a very rough one. Cool. So it's reloaded these, and it is all at 0, which is not what I said it should be like, or looking like. So if I go here, yeah, from, let's see, it's doing a curve mapper, it's doing this goes from -1 to 1, and I'm just mapping that from 0 to 10, based off of this base height map here. Oh, however, it is not exporting it. So let me actually do this, because this is not the correct thing. Let me do this, save it, and then you should see it working. It's just because it was exporting the wrong thing. So you see it should go all the way down to like 0. At some parts, like this pretty much goes down to 0, and then it goes up to 10. And I just found that just kind of using this this structure here of just using the sum and then the base map to inverter and then doing the curve mapper works best. But that is not what we're here to see. We're here to see what I've done with this, and I need to call it base height map again so it doesn't freak out. Base height map, yes, please. Alright, cool. This should all reload properly back to what it was before. And if it doesn't, it just means that it's probably saved. Okay, there we go, it's loading. I have also seen that in a recent release that they do have a another feature or another node that will help with performance, which is the Y sampled. So that would be very fun to try. I think that's coming out soon, but not yet for me. And I'm going to reload the world again. So starting off here, mixing it, determining based off of the so based off the continents at -0.02 to 0.02, it does a little bit of interpolating, so it's not like a straight like one mix to the other. I believe this is just like this right here is what I'm tracking, or is what the -0.2 to 0.02 is tracking there. And if we look in here, this splits it off between ocean and not ocean. So ocean goes down here, And you see right here you have rigid ocean and eroded ocean. Again, that's based off of another mix of the erosion. I'm gonna be saying erosion. I'm gonna be saying a lot of these words over and over, just because it does kind of get repetitive. I do wish there was kind of like a curve editor that you could like manually edit to like create graphs that look like what Henrik has in this video, or like this, which would be really cool to see and really helpful for debugging and kind of modifying as well. So going into it, I have one that is tracking based off the continents, so as it goes from just kind of this base here going all the way down to just all the way like -1 pretty much. It is just curving it to be very smooth. And then this does the same thing, except it has a lot more plateaus involved in it. And then for the land, what I'm doing is it's instead of doing continentalness of like how does it look from here going inwards, it is instead basing it off of peaks and valleys. Yes, I didn't actually split off. This is for shores and this is for inland. So it goes down into the river, and then it just goes up, and then it stays the same. For the rigid part, for the non-eroded, it does come up, and then it comes up, and then it makes a little bit of a rocky shore. So it's a little bit like off the ground a little bit, or off from the ocean. And then the same thing I do for inland, and it essentially just interpolates between the values. So the river values will pretty much stay the same depending on if it's inland or just on the shore. And then for, well, actually this is all loaded terrain based off of erosion being set to 0. So yeah, you can see actually right here is eroded, and then it comes into inland, and then it creates a plateau, which is very cool. But then if I set it to full or no erosion at all, which is -1, not 0, I save that, and then I go back. Yes, here's the land that was before, but now it is a lot higher, a lot more eroded. You can see again, as I was saying, it's a little bit more of a rocky shore here. And yeah, at the ocean, it does just have an immediate dip that then goes down into this layer instead of being very smooth as it has a shore, and then it goes down into this area. And so now this will be an interpolation between eroded and not eroded, as well as inland and shore. And just all these interpolating values, I just hope to make really unique terrain is the main hope for it. But that is it for this section. So let us continue. So we have this mapping of the terrain here, and so unfortunately the next thing is the biome mapping. How do we determine what is ocean, what is beach, what is river, what is desert, what is sorry, that's desert, this is the savanna, plains, which isn't here, forest, and I just have a I think I have a snowy biome, and then this is the forest, the taiga. So how do we determine between all that? Well, as we talked about before, it is based off of a system of just numbers. Yeah, analogy of how it works, I believe right here, yep. So just pretty much if it's between these values, map it to this certain biome and things like that. So what I have done is, first of all, I've gone in and created, I guess, quote-unquote masks of where places should be. And this was kind of a very simple part. It's kind of going in being like, hey, if it's base continents and if base continents is just pretty much lower than -0.025, call it 0, call it ocean. And then going on, if it's river, so if it's not ocean, then it could be river. So it's not like a river will cut through an ocean. It goes based off of like the biggest tiles first, and then it narrows in further and further. So yeah, so if it's a peak and valley, if it's less than -0.9, it will be a river. Going on, the beach tiles were a little bit more complicated just because the erosion value, I wanted it to be like, if it's a low erosion value like this, I wanted to have a decent amount of beach for a low erosion value. to where you have a lot of space to do things. Unfortunately, this is like a huge beach just because it like sort of has a little bit of like quote unquote ocean here. But you get what I mean, like a bigger beach, and then as it goes to like less erosion, then it'll be a smaller beach. So because of that, I did a lot of math, a lot of like just trial and error to multiply this base erosion with the continents to get whatever the beach tiles should be. And then going on here, I wanted to then determine the peak tiles to be based off of, peaks and valleys. Seems very simple, right? However, the erosion makes this very complicated because if it's fully eroded, there's not gonna be any cliffs. Again, this was generated with low erosion. You can see here is probably where a mountain would be. Unfortunately, there is no mountain because it is fully eroded. So then based off of that, I had to do a lot of more tweaking to determine, hey, based off of how these curves interact with each other and mix with each other, and just testing and even putting a curve mapper onto the multiplier, determine where the peaks should spawn. And that is determined, you can see it's not perfect. These are supposed to be peaks. This is a good peak, but as it gets more like towards the shore, it still does determine it as peak, and so then that's another thing I should account for, not just the erosion, but also how inland it is with the erosion, which is just another factor to go on to. But yeah, you can see actually over here, I remember that there was a mountain, a proper mountain, not just a small little mountain like that. Plateau here, and then over here is a mountain. This was generated with low erosion. A mountain, and then oh my, all the gaps in the terrain, because it's loading the world at different states. But yeah, so it determines based off of the peak and valley as well as how eroded it is, if it should be a peak or not, and then finally going in and determining if it should be a plateau, which this was a lot simpler, and unfortunately led to outside of its box. I guess I was still modifying it and I didn't realize that it reached out. I'll just save that real quick. Yeah, so this is kind of the same thing, except a little bit less complicated, factoring in the erosion to determine where the plateau should be. You can see I just wanted a little bit of a distinction to be like, hey, this would be like a slightly more different biome because it's like a little bit higher elevation and it's next to a mountain. I couldn't think of the name, or a peak, and like you could have like groves and stuff here. This is in fact a very small mountain, which is very unfortunate, but here's a little bit of a I guess sort of bigger mountain or peak. And then after that, everything else is just a standard land tile, like you can see with the plains, the forest, and all of that, the desert and all that. But you can see that there is a range between 0 and 27, and just a value of 27 between each one. And the reason that is because I want to determine, or I want to split these up, not just based off of if it's plateau, if it's a peak, but also based off of, I guess, more of this biome noise. And in order to do that, or this biome noise as well as the like erosion and some other stuff, but in order to determine that, I needed to split up these values more, and so I came up with this system, which I have right here. I created a new tab called Biome Mapping, where it's essentially able to determine, let me do a starting point of 0. It's essentially able to have a different integer value comparative to every single state that could be, based off of the temperature, based upon the vegetation, or the moisture, the humidity, as well as the erosion factor if it's sloping to jagged. And this is a little bit complicated, but I made this here, so like if I'm starting out with like the land tiles, which I think starts at 154, it could be like, oh, okay, so between 158 and 159, I want it to be, or for cold vegetative rocky, I want it to be this specific biome. So 158 to 159 I have specifically for this biome. And so then in order to do that, going back here, I essentially, have temperature groups of multiply by 9. So if it's cold, just add 0. If it's temperate, add 9. If it's hot, add 18. So this is plus 9, and then this is plus 18. And then again, it's better to look at it like here. And then, going down the line, it would be for the vegetative groups times 3. So then it would be like, if it's sparse, add 0. If it's if it's sparse, so like all of these groups here, add 0. If it's vegetative, add 3. And then if it's dense, add 6. And so then based off of that, you can have more defined kind of just biome mapping because of it. Again, this, I don't know, it's the system that I thought of and I thought would be really cool, but it is very kind of tedious, especially to like map it in the node editor here, which I will show in a second, in the asset editor, not the node editor, just because it is a lot. So I have 14 entries and I have to go through and make sure that each one is mapped to its corresponding section here, and this is 100% going to expand. It's going to expand to probably at least, what was the max number, to 162 different entries in there, which is just crazy. But I can do some overlapping, like for example, I think what I'm going to do for like the I think the planes is, I think I'm grouping these two together at least, so where I can do like between 9 and 10. I can group those together to be just planes, and then I can then in the specific map that I have for the planes, for the rocky part, I can add some rocks in there, and I can add some like arches in there as well into the noise pattern that I have for it. But yes, that is what I have for that. It's just my little thing, and again, I will include this Excel sheet down below where you can see just the just the absurdity of the biomapping. But that is it for this section. So yeah, planes here. Again, it's just calling to the base height map, and then you're just doing the inverter here. And I just pretty much stole a lot of this stuff from like the examples that is included in the Hytale system here. So like biomes, plains 1, and then I just like plains 1 oak I think is pretty good, and I copied a lot of the flowers and the grasses, and then I just I did modify some of them. I think, yeah, this one I modified, for example, plains grasses. So I can open that up, for example. Yeah, I'll just open it up here. And I also wanted to open it up because I know that a lot of people from my last video were having trouble with the assignments and them not necessarily working. And so then I just wanted to kind of go through, I guess, a couple of cases or reasons why it couldn't be working. The first thing that I'd recommend doing is that over in I guess the prop thing here, let me just recreate it because I lost it. I don't have it anymore. Yeah, mesh 2D positions, and then point generator is just starting off with 1, just filling the whole place with it as much as you can. It could be resource intensive, but just to make sure that it is actually placing everything there. And then assignments, again, it's recommended to import it to have it in a different file, and then from the import you can then start off with whatever you want between all of the assignments. So you could have constant, field function, sandwich, weighted, or imported. This one's weighted. And the next thing to check are these column linear scanners, because this is what determines, I guess, kind of what Y level it places it on. And this is important to not have too much like computation to determine where it goes. So just make sure that like this max Y and min Y based off of the base is within your range. So from the base, going from 0 to 60, if you can see here, going from 0 right here to 60, I think is pretty good, and it'll be within the range that the kind of the biome will spawn within, which is good. to make sure that that is there. And then the second thing to check is these blocks here, because the only way that these can spawn is if it is on these blocks. So just make sure that, like, if you add any different grasses or any different muds or any different dirts, or if you just have like stone to start off with, make sure that that is included in this list here. Because now, based off of the documentation, which is so lovely to now have, by the way, we have official documentation, which, let's see, the patterns right here, explains what exactly is happening. This is actually the thing I was just talking about. The floor check determines that you can place, it determines what you can place it on, and then just make sure that there's air above it. So again, this is the floor pattern. Make sure that there's air above, and then it makes sure that there is just blocks below it, or one of these blocks below it. And then this all goes into the directionality node. Why? I have no clue. I was expecting like this to determine the directionality of it, but apparently you go from whatever directionality you want, whether it's static or random, and then this determines if you can place your prop there, instead of it being like a separate node here. And so that is what it is. And also you can import and export these as well. So you don't have to like recreate this list every time, and then right here it's just an imported pattern, so you don't have to like copy and paste, or like if your biome changes and you add like another grass block, you don't have to then update them all, which is very nice. But yeah, so those are some things to check out for, and I just want to kind of go over real quick to kind of go through. But yeah, so let's actually show the prop of the forests. So I mean, a lot of this again is just copying back and forth. I even like went through every single, like, or not every, I think most of the biomes, and determined like what blocks and what like things spawn per like type of biome. So like a frozen, cold, temperate, hot, and then I think I was gonna do like the lava like steaming zone or whatever. I think I was gonna rename this to warm and then put hot. But like the grass and brush that spawn, the type of trees and the blocks, and then some examples of like the layers of like what type of grass, then it goes to dirt, then stone, or like it has a mix between quartz and gray clay. I just want to have an example to like kind of match the kind of biome temperatures at least a little bit, in order to make it kind of, one, realistic, because I think they did a good job of determining what should be underneath each biome, but then also to be kind of balanced, to make sure I'm not forgetting any like ferns or any flowers that should be in the game but that wouldn't be included here, for example. So let us start off first with the biome of the forest. Here it is. And this also saves like having like a sparse forest and then a forest. Like in Minecraft you'd have to separate them out differently. But I mean I could have also separated out here, but it makes it good to have like one general forest and not have to like define another thing depending on if it's vegetative or dense and things like that, and just kind of lumping it all in one to make it a little bit simpler for the biome mapping. But yes. Alright, so here's the forest. Again, it's just using this basic setup here. This is doing some determination based off of the vegetation mapping to have like more or less of these patches of like leafy soil and soil pathway. And also sticks and stones, I think. It has like less here, so it's like it's a better transition between like plains and then into like a forest where it has a lot more of these varied, I guess, materials in it, and a lot more just kind of mushrooms and things like that growing. I would want this forest to be a lot more dense. It doesn't feel as dense as it should. I don't know if for the grasses I like upped it to be more as it comes in here, like ferns and bushes, but I think that's definitely worth it. I also saw a tweet of someone's world generation where they have like huge like trees that really make it feel like a really dense and all-encompassing forest. And I think actually I may have run into that one of those issues that I talked about in the terms of, I mean, it makes sense that no grass is spawning on the soil, but I don't think any grass is spawning on this leafy soil either. So I would want to include that in the list of things that the grass can spawn on. Although some, no, yeah, see, it doesn't actually spawn on this leafy grass, which I think is making it look a lot less dense than it does out here. So yeah, just something to keep in mind if you add more and more materials into it. Right, the trees. So this, it's very standard. I'm just spacing out 10 by 10, but of course it's not spawning at every 10 by 10, as you can see here, and that is determined based off of in here. I just wanted to see if there's anything a little bit more complicated in it that I was doing before it went to the assignment, but it looks like most of it is actually just being called from here. Yeah, so forest trees, and I can add a skip chance just to skip them all in general. The first thing that I do here, and I added this in afterwards, is I have the large trees sometimes just spawn to make it not be so, I guess, uniform, to be like, hey, this is dense, and then it's small trees, and then it's no trees. And instead, just occasionally have these large trees, because it is still a forest, and I want it to still feel like a forest and not just kind of uniform in that way. And I did also add like a little bit of noise pattern, as you can see in here, to make it not like be a hard cutoff, which you can see a little bit here. And I think what I do want to do is for each of those masks that I do, just add a little bit of noise in between here to just not make it, again, as such of a harsh border. But yes, okay, so anyways, going here with the field function, this is, yes, okay, this is again with the base vegetation. I did some values to make sure it's not like, to kind of spread out the vegetation value a little bit more, and then this is again adding that little bit of noise along the border there to make sure it's not all uniform. And then this is determining if it's essentially nothing, small trees, or large trees. And then in here, I think I copied this from the oak, the Plains Oak biome assignment for trees, is that it determines between small trees and bushes, which I thought was cool and I thought was very useful. So this is just a weighted assignment that just goes in between 70 and 30. So most of the time it'll be small trees, sometimes it's bushes. And then amongst here, let's go through the small trees. Everything here should be plain to see. You can determine between these, including soil leaves, which is good because I forgot soil leaves on the other one apparently. And yes, it's a union prop, so around the small trees will spawn, what will spawn? Sticks, which is good. I think I decreased the sticks because just a lot of sticks were spawning, and I felt it kind of broke up what I was kind of looking for. This is the pattern of where it can spawn on, right? That's what it is. Yes, pattern is what it can spawn on. This is the curve, so make sure it's close. Yeah, you can see I decreased the chance of the stick spawning, but still sticks spawn. I get it from a gameplay standpoint in that you want to be able to collect a lot of sticks, but I didn't want the floor just cluttered with only sticks. Yes, and make sure that it's within the range here, and then this is relative to position. I believe that's just because it's going through this system here to make sure, so it's already at this position, so it's just pretty much at the same position, which is good. And don't want to do any more like different scans. And actually it's important to have another linear scanner, by the way, because I found out that like if you have, like, say this, where's a good point? Say the small tree, and then it wants to spawn, let's get a pile of sticks. And it wants to spawn a pile of sticks like over here. What would happen is it would spawn sticks here, floating, because the position that it determines for cluster props is based off of this one position. So I need to do another linear scanner just to make sure that this is then clamped back down onto the ground, which is quite interesting. So yeah, here, this is only scanning at the point of the cluster prop, and then you need to do it again at wherever it's clustered to, essentially. Which is kind of cool. Yeah, so oak and beech can spawn for small trees. I think that's pretty much it. The brush, I think it's a cluster prop, then again needs to be clamped down to not have floating bushes. And that's there, and that's determined based off that. It only goes from 0 to 30, which is a little bit of an oversight in case it goes a little bit over, since this is set to 60, and I just don't notice that bushes stop spawning. Because, yeah. So that's something to look out for. Here's the large trees. I have beech stage 3 and 4, and then oak stage 4 and 5. Again, this is all just copied, and also, again, if you want to look through what you can spawn, you can go into here. So yeah, that's pretty much how the trees work in the forest. And so I did the same thing for over here, where I just put more and more trees up to the savanna, and then I think if I put it, I think I had it, if it's hot and it's really dense, to put a swamp, but I have not created the swamp yet, so it's just an empty little area there. But that is it for this section. Now, let me add in a little bit more of a local height map to this area with the desert. You have this base height map, and again, I'm going to do something, I guess, kind of very similar to what I showed before, except now this time working with the base height map is just adding in a little bit of noise onto it. And how I typically do that, again, is using the curve mapper to make it look a little bit more, I guess, defined. And something that I do want to try is the other types of curve mappers, because as you can see here, these are just very, I don't know, you can very much tell, like, hey, this is 1 point, and then this is the high point, and it just kind of goes between there. It's actually a good mountain range. All the other mountain ranges I was showing you was so small and not that impressive. But anywho, yes, I wanted to try the different curve mappers, which, again, so glad that we have this here with all of these explanations. I could do distance exponential or distance S and things like that. I've been using distance S a lot for a new project that I'm working on. And just, yeah, overall, lots of cool curve mappers to try. That'll make it look a lot smoother besides just pretty much just this straight line. Make it look a lot more natural. Alright, so I want to do, let's make this a little bit larger and then just curve it between, maybe I do want to try one of these. What's a good one? I think going 0.5 and 2 is pretty good, and then doing a transition of, yeah, let's do a transition of 0.5 as well. Just kind of copying what this has here. 0.5 and 2. The range, I actually need to remap this because this goes between -1 and 1, and as you can see here, this goes from 0 to whatever the range is, and that will not work well. So let me do the what's it called, normalizer. And also figured out that these values do not clamp. So if I do this, then of course there'll be values outside of -0.5 that this will give, and it will pretty much continue going past -0.25 to whatever value would be kind of linearly mapped to this. And I think it would probably like cut it in half, I guess. So if it goes to -1, it'll actually map to -0.5 instead of being like clamped at -0.25 as I previously assumed. The reason why I thought it worked was because I was using them a lot with the mixed density nodes, but those just have it to be from 0 to 1, and I think if it goes over 0 and 1, like to like 1,000 or whatever, it would still just count it as 1, so it never gave me an error. So I never understood why you had a clamp right before a mixed noise, because it didn't necessarily change anything. Maybe it does help with processing in terms of like, oh, it's exactly 1, and it skips over a lot of processing internally, but yeah. So despite all that, let me map this to -1, 0, 1, and also because I'm doing this will only go from 0 to 1, which will look like pretty much nothing. I guess in order to test the local height map, what I can do is like I did before and just cut off this on here and then save, and yes, this will actually work. Okay, cool. So yes, you can see it is trying to go back to the original height map here, but also the height map that I didn't really do much, and I think that's just because of it being not that strong. So let me do a multiplier onto here, because it's pretty much going from 0 to 1, which isn't that exciting. So let me do a constant curve. Let's do 5, put that on there, save it, and then come back in, and you should see, perfect. Yes, my perfect little mounds here. I want to do a little bit more. You can also do like a sum and then another constant to move the curve up and down as well. But I just want to do this for now. That looks pretty good for my dunes. In fact, let me, I guess, mess with these values a little bit more. Oh yeah, what was the transition that they did? I think it was a different transition. It was 0.5 transition. So let me go ahead and do that. Put that in here, see what that does. Makes it look a little bit more like, I guess, how I wanted it to look, actually. A little bit more like it's more between these values is a lot sharper than the top and bottom ranges. So let me then add this back onto the base height map, and it's actually kind of good that we have the rest of it not loading the terrain to see if I've like accidentally added on height onto this, which I have. Which I guess makes sense because I was going from 0 to 10, and I would probably want to go from -5 to 5 to just make it kind of flow a lot nicer between everything. So let me go ahead and indeed add what I said would help with this. So let me sum, add this on here, and then move it down to a constant. I'm sure you could also like do like a sum using density and then doing a constant there, but I don't know, it's already with the curve mappers, so I figured I'd just kind of work with it. And this looks a lot nicer. You have half of it above, half of it below, so hopefully everything else, like specifically for the river, since this is a different biomap, should flow nicely. And it makes the deserts look a lot nicer. I mean, I do like this desert, but I wanted to do it for, like I was saying, over in here. I want the, for example, hot desert to be the same for both of these, but for the rocky one, I wanted to add like a dunes that would kind of slowly show up as it got a little bit more rocky, which actually you can kind of see here. It's not that rocky here, but it does get a little bit rocky here, and so you would probably have more of these dune shapes in my, I guess, kind of vision that I had for this area. So yeah, and that's kind of my goal, or was my goal for this kind of project, and I do want to continue it. However, I do have other things on my mind of things that I want to complete. One of which you see every time you load up a world. Maybe I want to recreate that, if you know what I'm talking about. Which requires a lot of very unique nodes, which I'm very excited to show. I know a lot of people are doing like the twist nodes and things like that to create like galaxies and other like really cool things. But anyways, I think that's it. I just kind of wanted to show off kind of this little thing because I know that I you know, yapped to death in the last video, probably yapped to death a little bit again here, of like the different things with the world generation tools. Again, these dunes look so cool, especially with being able to blend everything so nicely. But yeah, if you have any questions, even just about world generation in general, because you know, again, I had that that large Terra project where I did a lot of where I really looked into a lot of the techniques for Minecraft's world generation. I just don't know how aquifers work yet. If anyone knows, please let me know. But yeah, I think that's it. So I will see you in the next video where we will be doing some very, very exciting stuff, and I'm super excited about it. Hey, this is post me. Just saying that I had a lot of just kind of random bits that I brought up throughout it that didn't really fit like while editing into the main stream of it. So here's kind of a collection of other kind of tidbits that I talked about while going through it, like for example dynamic structures and some other things I can't think of right now, so enjoy. You can't have a dynamic prefab. Turns out you can if you open up prefab editor. That's right. And then I recommend just going to the demo. That's it. Just do that. You can look at all these values later because you will understand how it works in here. In here is how the prefabs work. This is like the different types of prefabs in that one list. So let me actually open it up in here. So this is all one structure. I can't open it up. Actually, I can look here, I think, actually. I don't know which one it is, but like, for example, this would be like all of these. It groups up all of these all in a row here to show you what is here, and then these can spawn a specific block or another, or this is an anchor. So like if you're going through this system here, and then wherever you spawn it, the anchor will be the spawn point essentially, and then these will be like other places that you can spawn things. So like this will spawn and encounter zone 1 tier 1, and it'll go through that specific thing, fit Heightmap, inherit seed, all this stuff. This is just a chest, so it's probably only spawning the one block, a randomized block that can be there. Actually, I can look for prefab in here, and you can see that you have the prefab spawner. So this would spawn other prefabs in the prefab. This is the anchor tool, and then I thought there was oh, it's a spawner. Okay, so let me look for a spawner actually. Yeah, so this is the block spawner. So this will spawn a specific block, and then this will be the oh, that's a large block spawner. That's a block spawner, and then this is a prefab spawner, and then those are other random spawners. A rat spawner, interesting. Anywho, but yes, and I think these are the same as how Minecraft does it, just air blocks to make sure that like whenever it spawns in, it's not like covered with dirt and just all like already trapped in here. You can see I'm inside blocks right now, so this probably extends all the way just to make sure that it doesn't, or like actually if the anchor's like on the top here, then it could be like a cave that goes down into here. I think that's also how the cave system works, by the way, is using just kind of these prefabs, but I haven't confirmed that to be sure. But anyways, yes, this is this system here. If I hit E, then you can save it as a new thing, you can change it and things like that, and you can spawn them in and have dynamic prefabs. But how to exit is, oh, I realized that it is actually on the screen, and it's the last command, p-edit exit. Exit anyways. Alright, and this should take me exactly back, which is really cool that it just saves your position and world and all that, and you can just easily go back like that. Super useful. And then I also added a weirdness factor just to be 0.5, so I could do 158.5 to 158.5 to 159 to be like, hey, on the other side of a river, to have like a different biome. Because if you don't know what the weirdness factor is, it's essentially just taking the peaks and valleys before it becomes peaks and valleys, which just means that on this side it's positive noise, on this side it's negative noise, and so that's essentially the weirdness value, to where I could have like I think one of the examples I was gonna do was having the taiga here, but then on the other side of the river having the azure biome, because I think that's kind of a cold biome that could be kind of mixed in with this, but like on the other side of the river. And so yeah, that's why that you have another distinguisher of a 0.5 between each one. And something else that I want to change, sorry, just another thing I wanted to add, is I think I want to put these rivers into these biomes. I don't think I want to have it as a separate biome, because while Minecraft, all that it has is river and frozen river, I want to be able to do I mean, I want to have like a dry river, for example, which just is kind of pretty much just all blocked off here to where there's like to where there's no actual water here. And then another thing with that I could do is add like other cool things, like say it's like a swamp biome, which I think this is a little swamp biome here. To have like different mossy rocks and things like that. And I just realized that, you know, this is already kind of part of the global noise map, so it doesn't matter to add it or remove it. so why not just put it all into one, and then I can add in features specifically for the river easier into one biome file instead of just specifying through the through the long biomapping process to specify like, hey, this is a savanna river, hey, this is this specific river, and all that. So I definitely think I should cache it, or maybe even cache the global base height map, because while I don't have any borders, it is still like interpolating the values that it gets here all the way to like over here, which just means that it computes all the values here twice, which is very unfortunate. I tried setting it to 0, but unfortunately it did not like that, and I think it crashed. And if you don't know what I'm talking about this value here, the transition distance and the biome edge, which let's do a little test. Why not? Of seeing what happens if we cache this, because we really should. It's probably used a lot. Like I said, for the in-between areas. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to clamp the Y value to make sure that we are, overriding it, to make sure we're not like asking for different Y values and grabbing different ones, because every Y value will be the same since it's all 2D. And then caching it, and it recommends a cache of 3, so I will just stay with that pretty much. And let's see how this works. You can actually see the difference, so let me go here and say that it's fully eroded again, or I could go back to what it was before, see if this is maybe a bit faster, which yeah, it is very much faster. So recommend very much to do caching for a lot of these procedures, unlike what I've done. I can't believe it. What am I teaching? I jump around a lot, but there's just a lot, and I'm so excited, and I'm also kind of nervous because last video got 5,000 views, and I just did not expect that to happen. And again, I want to say thanks for that.